Well, welcome to the order of Monday morning. There's Monday Night Magic class tonight. We're working on the some of the exercises and the concepts in my new book, The Tarot Architect, which today is, well, it's not officially out in the UK, but it's out in the UK now, which I'm very, very happy to hear. I was in contact with the good folks at Atlantis Bookshop, the Atlantis Bookshop over on Museum Street in London, in central London. And that's sort of my home territory, my home bookstore and shop. I read tarot cards there whenever I visit, and they're always very nice. But I always stop by at Watkins bookstore too, so I don't want to shortchange anybody. But the Tarot Architect is now available if you would order it on Amazon UK. Even though it says pre-order, you'd get it about the same time. It's officially out on the 20th or 25th of this month. But anyway, very, very happy at how it's being received here in the United States, and hope our British friends enjoy it too. Years ago, I worked for 9 years at a very, very large commercial real estate company. As a matter of fact, after all the mergers and everything, it became the largest commercial real estate company in the world. And as you can imagine, I'm not a kind of philosophically compatible corporate kind of person, you know. Frankly, I'm too lazy and uneducated to be excited about that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, there's much I object to with the behavior of commercial development, things like that. Be that as it may, I digress. I sort of accidentally got into doing that. Okay. I was sitting around in my underpants typing a book, probably something for Alan at New Falcon years and years ago. And my son saw how fast I was typing, and he said, "Why don't you type fast? Why don't you just get a couple little temporary jobs?" There was an outfit called Remedy Temp, and bring in a little extra money in the house. And I said, "Oh, they don't want fat old men. They want beautiful young men and women." Okay. But he shamed me. And so I got on my motor scooter. I put on a suit and a tie, and I got on my tiny little motor scooter. It was a tiny little Honda, the smallest little scooter they made. And I was so big at the time, I was about 320 pounds. And I sat on that little scooter, and it looked like the scooter completely disappeared. It looked like I was riding down this road with a scooter stuck up my ass. But anyway, I went and I applied at registered there at Remedy, and they were just delighted because I could speak in complete sentences and that I knew my alphabet and I could type, I don't know what it was officially, 60 some words a minute or something like that, and which isn't huge, but it's pretty good for an old fart. And immediately they sent me to work at a place that was a tenant, commercial real estate, but it was a tenant representative firm. Okay. Now, I'd never been in corporate America at all. Okay. The closest I got to it was CBS Records, Columbia Records. And it was as an artist and not as a, not as a, I wasn't involved in the business. And, I'm digressing here, but anyway, uh, I went to work for them, and they had all this beautiful office equipment. It was a very small firm at first. There was just 5 guys in the office, and uh, I could type their letters up in about 20 minutes every day. And I was just sitting around in my little cubicle with a phone and copy machine and stuff. And I had lots of free time. And so that's where I wrote the book, The Tarot of Ceremonial Magic. And then I wrote the book, Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium there too. But that company got bought off by a bigger company, and I figured I was going to get fired. Every day I went to work on that little scooter, I figured I was going to get fired. They're going to say, this guy's writing books. He's not. No, they never caught on. Ever. Never. And it got absorbed by a bigger company, got absorbed by a bigger company and a bigger company. But I worked hard there because I was writing books. I wrote at least 5 full books in the 9 years I was there. So I would come in early and leave late. So it appeared to be that I was the best worker in the place. And but I stayed late. One night, I think I was writing the Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot. And when you get going on something, you lose track of time and stuff. And so I was kind of staying late, and I heard these 2 agents that had their cubicles, I guess, in the same general area where I was staying late, and they were talking back and forth about a client, and the client, one guy said, I could never trust him. He told me that he didn't believe that Adam and Eve were real. And I can't trust anybody that is so stupid that they don't believe in Adam and Eve. And I would like to say I couldn't believe my ears. But I'm sad to say I could believe my ears. Okay. These guys had business degrees. They were MBAs. They had CPAs. They had degrees. They were college educated, and they were talking about Adam and Eve. And I guess they felt me listening. Well, I was within eyeshot, and they said, Lon, can you believe that? And my mind was going 1,000,000,000 miles an hour, okay, as to what I wanted to say to these guys. And I just wanted to not get into the discussion. Not only did I not want to uh, ridicule and belittle them or hurt their feelings. And the easiest thing I could say was, I'm an atheist, which was true, because whatever God it was that they believed in that made them believe in the historicity of Adam and Eve, and not as a myth or an allegory or a great Kabbalistic arcanum. But I mean, hi, I'm Adam. This is my wife, Eve. Snakes talk to her. Okay. Uh, it was just easier for me to say, I'm an atheist. Because for a God like that, I'm an atheist. And it got me out of the situation. My father was a Freemason, okay, and a geologist. Okay, he had a geology degree from USC, I think. No, UCLA. And so he was very hip to evolution and things like that. My mother tried to divorce him when I was first born because he was an atheist, and that was incompatible with her understanding of Christianity and that he joined the Masons and and oh, that's another story. I guess I was a baby sitting on the desk of the lawyer she went to. My brother, who's 6 years older, tells me this story. And she said she wanted to divorce my father. And the attorney said, well, on what? Does he beat you? Does he drink? Well, he drinks a little, but he doesn't beat me. He doesn't abuse the kids. He's good with the kids. And so, well, what? She said, he's an atheist. He believes in Darwin. Darwin is his Bible. And he said, well, actually, that's probably not grounds for divorce. And she says, well, he goes out at night and doesn't tell me where he's going. Or he doesn't tell me what he's doing. And he says, well, do you know where he's going? And she says, yes, he's joined the Masons. And the attorney said, this is my brother telling me this because I was literally almost a babe in arms. I said, why, Mrs. DuQuette, I'm a Freemason. That's certainly not grounds for divorce. Anyway, that's another digression. Dad was cool. Dad was a cool enough guy. Had all sorts of other shortcomings and everything else. Secretive old Scorpio and everything else. But he was a scientist. And for all intent and purposes, he could have said the same thing to those men in my office. Okay, it would have been easy for him just to say, well, I'm an atheist, so don't bring me into this conversation. But I would ask him as a kid, because he took us to church, he joined the church and everything else. But it was a community thing to do in those days, and he liked some of the ministers, and some of them he didn't, but he didn't believe in the miracles part of the resurrection and things like that, and he didn't encourage us to swallow mom's fundamentalism either. And so I said, "Hey, are you an atheist?" And I started off by saying, "Are you an agnostic?" Because I was growing up enough to know these terms. Are you an agnostic? He said, no. I said, well, but you don't believe in Jesus like these other. No, no. Well, are you an atheist? And he sort of looks up and said, he didn't say no. He just said, oh, I can't be an atheist. I'm a Freemason. Because in Freemasonry, the qualification of not being an atheist doesn't demand them caring what it is you are. And so if your definition of the supreme being is just the big singularity of existence, that's fine. And as long as we're monads of consciousness, aware of existence, that's cool. And that's kind of the Mason he was. Why am I saying all of this? Years ago, a good friend of mine, not only a Freemason, but at least for a while, an OTO brother, and sort of a pagan wiki kind of organized wonderful festivals and stuff. John M. Boy, Boye, and in his spiritual growth adventure, he eventually became a Buddhist. And after a few years and he never does anything halfway, he goes all the way into it. And eventually he wrote a book, and I've got a copy upstairs somewhere, but here's the cover of it, and it says, "Why is God upside down?" And it's a really good book, and I'm sad to say it is, after a few years, it went out of print, and so you can still buy it. It's very expensive because you're kind of getting a collector's item. But he was kind enough to ask me to write a foreword to it, and let's see where. I think I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah. And so I did. And I think years ago, I think when I first wrote it, I probably shared it with you. If so, here it is again. What? Introduction to John Boy's Why is God Upside Down? I grew up in the white middle-class Protestant heartland of America, circa 1955 to 1966. We moved there in 1965. We moved there in 1955. I was like 7 years old. My family attended the Methodist Church. I sang in the choir. I ceremonially lit and snuffed the candles at Sunday services. It was cute. I looked like a little angel in that thing. I was active in the Methodist Youth Fellowship and dutifully attended Sunday school, summer Bible camp. God, I hated summer Bible camp. And volunteered to fold the weekly church bulletins and other duties around our century-old church building. It was really neat. I got to be alone in the church building. Actually, I didn't mind too much. It was pleasant enough. In fact, I felt perversely comfortable puttering around God's house and a bit envious of our pastor and what I observed to be his respected and genteel lifestyle of a small town Nebraska cleric. For several years, I even fantasized I might like to be a Methodist minister when I grew up. I dreamed how nice it would be to live rent-free in a Victorian parsonage. Walk a few steps next door to go to work in the cool and quiet pastor's study, and have a beautiful wife and a handful of misbehaving kids. I don't know about you, but pastors' kids are notorious juvenile delinquents. I fell in with a few of them too in my youth. Okay. There was only one problem with this daydream. I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in the God-man Jesus. I didn't believe Jesus was the Son of God. I didn't believe he rose from the dead. I didn't believe in heaven. I didn't believe in hell. I didn't believe in the devil. I didn't believe that I was sinful or I had anything to apologize for or repent of. I didn't believe I needed to be forgiven or saved. I really couldn't believe that all these adults actually believed themselves condemned to eternal flames and torment just for the crime of being born. I thought God and Jesus and hell were just stories for kids like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. And when it finally became clear to me that at least some grown-ups actually believe this stuff, I became instantly suspicious of all adult beliefs like patriotism and nationalism and the grown-up preoccupation with the dirtiness of sex and their enthusiasm for war. In fact, I believe with all my heart that the grown-ups who tried to force me to believe this nonsense were complete idiots, or worse, hypocrites who didn't believe in it either. Nobody had to teach me to disbelieve. It simply didn't make any sense to me. I didn't know exactly what I did believe, but I knew enough, even at an early age, to conclude with absolute certainty that Christianity and the Bible and all the loud-mouthed bully religions that were based on that stupid book couldn't possibly be the only spiritual game plan in town. If there was anything I did believe, it was that anyone who tried to force me to believe this nonsense were complete morons and had an angle, or worse. They didn't believe in this bullshit either. Naturally, I did feel a bit lonely in my heretical heart, a loneliness that was eventually assuaged by teenage hormonal distractions, rock music, and my involvement in the anti-war and civil rights movements. The moment I graduated from high school in 1966, I packed up my guitars and socialist songbooks and abandoned the prairie for the sunny beaches of Southern California. I arrived at college just in time to catch the crest of a psychedelic wave of a cultural and spiritual awakening of, dare I say, biblical proportions. I may have been adrift on a wild sea of religious and philosophical ideas, But I soon realized that I was anything but alone in rejecting the faith of my fathers. Like Mr. Boy, John Boy, the author of the book I'm introducing here, by talking about myself. He asked for it. Okay. I initially sought out a ready-made ism that I might simply plug myself in to replace the stupidism of Christianity. There were plenty of isms to choose from. I think I'll be a Hindu. None of this is real. No, I don't eat that. Pardon me, I need a high colonic. Sorry, I'm celibate for health. Sorry, I need to ejaculate more for health. I'm fasting. I'm juice fasting. I'm water fasting. I'm air fasting. I was comfortable with the Hindu thing for a while. At least it wasn't Christianity, and it had offered many incarnations for me to work things out. But at the time, I felt a bit like I was trying to run Eastern software on my Western hardware. It took me many years before I started to realize I didn't need to be rescued by an ism. Mr. Boy's story, it's a wonderful, charming story, has many parallels to my own quest. Both of us were seeking something non-Christian, non-blind faith to attach to. John's way of going non-Christian was by going pre-Christian, with the old gods and nature-affirming practices of neo-paganism. Mine by going magical, hermetic, and by Christian definition, heretical. Ironically, both these paths would find a common denominator in the rites and traditions of Freemasonry, a spiritual art form that, to the sensitive initiate, now you're not required to be a sensitive initiate, okay? Masonry is a big tent, okay? But a spiritual art form that, to the sensitive initiate, seems to exalt and synthesize the spiritual essences of both paganism and magic, and does so under the seemingly innocuous umbrella of Bible stories. Now, it seems John and I have something else in common. That is the realization that our illumination, our enlightenment, our liberation will not, does not, and cannot ever be ultimately found in organizations, clubs, orders, covens, societies, or religions, but is simply a matter of waking up. Can you imagine how amused I am at people thinking they're insulting somebody by calling them woke? I wish. Okay. A popular story fable tells that the Buddha, almost immediately after his enlightenment, walked around India preaching his doctrines. His holiness was apparent to all who encountered him. They saw in his serene composure and countenance a profound peace that they believed must only come from a God. "Are you a god?" they asked. "No," he replied. "Are you the incarnation of a god?" "No," he answered again. "Are you a sorcerer?" "No." "Are you a man?" "No." "If you aren't a man or a sorcerer or a god, what are you?" The Buddha simply replied, "I am awake." The word Buddhism ends with ism, but is Buddhism an ism? In essence, it is simply waking up. In Brother Boy's book, he's guilelessly allowed us to observe his process of waking up. He recites his litany of many epiphanies and bitter disappointments that are the natural and inevitable recompense for all who would pin their aspirations in the process of working with other people and other organizations. If you receive nothing else from your reading experience, I hope you will at least come away with a better understanding of your own journey. And when you close the book, you'll be just a little more. Anyway, that's my preaching for the order of Monday morning. I hope we all have a wonderful week ahead of us, an adventurous week, a productive week, a week where we become more awake. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.